Hello everyone and welcome to what could be a brand new series. Right now it's just one video titled NASCAR Flashbacks. This was inspired by a channel that I am subscribed to, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with him. The channel is Team Bomber Sports, and he recently started a series called Classic Race Club, and I encourage you to go check it out if you haven't. And that's what this possible series, if I make more videos, was inspired by. So this is not completely my idea. The credit does go to Team Bomber Sports, and so just look at that channel, or I might even put it in the description. And so really, this series is basically me recapping NASCAR races that I've seen, but many years ago, and it'll be presented in a unique fashion. Growing up, I simply loved cars, especially race cars. I remember waking up very early in the morning just so that way I could devote a good amount of time just to get a whole bunch of toy cars and race them around with racetracks that I used to build. This was before my stop motion days, just the record. I remember watching race car movies like Hot Wheels movies when I was younger, but throughout this whole entire time, I didn't know that there was like an actual sport, or just kind of like an event like this until I stumbled upon NASCAR. And for a long time, or not really exactly for a long time, but probably maybe for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, I thought this was the first race. I thought this race right here was the first race that I watched. 2007 UAW 4x500 at Talladega in the Chase fall race, first race that I played check for the COT. And it wasn't the first race I watched, but man, I think this was the one that really solidified me being a fan of NASCAR, which I am to this day. Because look at this here, Jeff Gordon makes a last lap pass on Jimmy Johnson. I'm not going to turn up the volume, but if you watch this, you can just hear the energy of the crowd, the excitement. It really gets you up and motivated. And Jeff Gordon goes on to win. But it turns out this was the first race I saw.
The heavyweights of NASCAR have come to the heartland as Kansas Speedway plays host to stop number 3 of 10 in the chase for the Nextel Cup.
It doesn't say in the title, but this race was the 2007 LifeLock 400 at Kansas Speedway. Over 100,000 people showed up for this race despite rainy weather conditions all around the area. And this was the first race I can recall watching. I didn't watch all of it, only parts of it, but I'm still going to go through the entire race. And still a special race to me. And of all the races that I found myself watching, this was actually a pretty interesting one. Many of you probably do not remember it, but it was quite the dramatic and controversial race, to say the least. This was ESPN's first year of its 2007 to 2014 contract, and even though I know and people weren't very fond of them when they came back, especially in its first years, but watching these races brings back good memories. The 2007 Chase for the Nextel Cup, as it was called at the time, got off to quite the start, with Clint Boyer winning his first ever race, the 2007 Savannah 300 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, in my first Cup race. And I don't think many people saw this driver heading into the chase as someone who's a championship threat, but I think this race solidified that thought in many people's heads. And then we head to Dover, which Dover, every now and then, Dover just has that wild, attrition-filled race. That is what we saw in the 2007 Dodge Dealers 400. Look at some of these pictures. And these pictures don't tell the full story. Go watch the whole race, or at least go watch some of the highlights. It was definitely attrition-filled is really the best way to describe the race. And at the end of the day, Carl Edwards won for the first time at the Monster Mile, and that year he really developed the nickname Concrete Carl, just because of his success at tracks like Dover, the former Nashville Super Speedway, and Bristol. Jimmy Johnson captured the pole, but he had a crash in practice and then started through the field, so that moved Matt Kenseth up to the pole position with Scott Briggs starting to the inside. And I gotta say, just listen to the crowd as we come to the green flag. I know the crowds today aren't as big as they used to be for multiple reasons, but I kind of wish I wish that every single race could start out with you hearing that, because I think it really helps you just kind of, it gets you like pumped up, it gets you excited, and helps you just kind of ease into the race. It didn't take too long for the action to get intense. This was about into the top 5. Whoa, Scott Riggs almost got sideways. This was the Nextel Cup Series 7th year at the Kansas Speedway, and by this point the track was, or not the track, the racing groove was completely wide from the bottom to the top. So you could race 2, 3, and let's look at this. Take a snapshot right about now. 4 wide. In fact, you could even go 5 wide if they really tried to. So this is when a racetrack is really at its best. Mist formed over the track in turns 1 and 2, which then brought the caution on lap 13, and then we had to have pit stops, but we couldn't go back to racing because, well, just look at that. Rain, rain, rain everywhere. And I want to say we were under delay for about an hour, but then we got back to racing. Just before we went back racing, chase contender Jeff Burton was penalized for making modifications to the car, as you can see right here. Not intentional, but here's what Jeff Burton had to say about the penalty. I gotta admit, whether I agree with the driver or not, sometimes rants during races can be pretty entertaining and funny to listen to. We had a lengthy green flag run in the making, but still took a balance on the racetrack, and there goes Kyle Busch. Another one of the chase contenders, and this happened in the middle of the back straightaway. Quite the unusual spot for a single car incident at Kansas. When the instant replay was presented in front of our eyeballs, Kyle Busch thought he was clear of Dale Earnhardt Jr., but was not. His car got out of control and went into the outside wall. It wasn't a hard impact, but it was enough to where he would go behind the wall for many laps and get a pretty fourth finish. Kyle Busch did not have very nice words to say to Dale Earnhardt Jr. When his team was trying to fix his car. After some more pit stops, newer faces like Kurt Busch and Martin Truex Jr. began entering the picture, but there goes Martin Truex Jr. into the wall. Another chase contender has a problem early in the race. My goodness, they were just dropping like flies. But the caution came out because, wait for it, the tire would come off his car, causing a debris caution. And it's a good thing that he was able to stay on the lead lap, and Truex still had a fast car. He also didn't hit the wall very hard, so he was able to continue on, but he would have a long road ahead for him to get back towards the front. I also want to take a moment here to mention one of my favorite things about the NASCAR on ESPN coverage, and that was the cutaway car where Tim Brewer basically explained stuff. It was very informal and visual to watch, and I wish it would have continued through the entire contract. I'm pretty sure many NASCAR fans who watch the sport a lot on TV know how this feels. You're witnessing the best battle on the racetrack, and then, what? Dude, don't go to commercial. We're gonna miss the best battle for the lead. And then something exciting happens during the commercial break, and you're like, man, why did we have to miss that? Thanks. So Kurt Busch passed Matt Kenseth, and it was the first on-track pass for the lead in the race. While watching the race, I found this interesting soundbite from Jimmy Johnson.
I think the chase makes it more difficult to win a championship.
Little did we know what the chase was able to help him do. With 5 championships in a row, I have a feeling he might be thinking differently about that statement he said back in 2007. Anyway, back to the action. Jeff Gordon won the race off the road and became the new leader, but why did the caution come out? Kenny Wallace, filling in for Ricky Rudd, had brake issues, and, well, he just decided to take a spin, and that's why the caution came out. Matt Kenseth took the lead back shortly after the restart, and Tony Stewart was slowly crawling back to the top spot, the winner from a year ago. And right about here, we see another orange car, Jeff Burton. His pumps continue. He reported no fuel pressure, and that would bring out another caution. He would go behind the wall for many laps. Once again, after the restart, we had even more great battles to the lead. This was an awesome three-car battle here between Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, and Matt Kenseth. And if you look behind them, a good battle is going on between Hendrick teammates Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. So good battles everywhere at Kansas Speedway today. One factor that often leads to good racing is when Goodyear brings a good tire. And they really did a great job of bringing a good tire for this racing here. And you want to see a good example of tire wear? Look at Jeff Burton. He had just come out of the garage. He had fresh tires, and he was able to quickly get by all of these lead cars and get one of his main laps back. And I gotta say, watching this race again, I really miss the old service that Kansas had before the repave. I don't really think the racing has really been this great at Kansas since then. If Kansas never got repaved, the racing would likely be just as great as Fontana. Once again, another long run appears to be in the making, and Robbie Gordon spins in the back of the field, hits the outside wall a little bit on the right rear in turns 1-2 on lap number 90. When we went back to green flag racing, Martin Truex Jr. was the new leader, but didn't hold on for long. But why was he the leader? Well, if you look at his pit stop, his team only took 2 tires, and even though he made slight contact with Kyle Petty, he was still able to get the lead. I was not joking when I said earlier we were seeing great battles on the racetrack, and we have another caution. Man, can we please get in a long defect run for heaven's sake? What is it for this time? Debris? Man, debris caution. Oh, thank goodness, ESPN. Thank you for showing that debris. Unlike what TV does now and say debris caution, but yet it never shows the debris. For the first time in the race, we saw mixed strategies as drivers towards the back half of the field came down the road. It's important to remember that heavy rain was on the way, so the race could be rain shortened, and that made many drivers not willing to give up their track position. We would have had another debris caution, but Matt Kenseth kept that from happening. And where did this debris come from? The answer might surprise you. It came from Tony Stewart, but yet this was something we never heard of the rest of the race. I just had to give a shout out to Dave Blaney, and kudos to ESPN for also giving him some airtime. Right here, he makes the pass on Matt Kenseth, so he moves up to the 5th position in his car, so his car was running really well. But what makes this run even more impressive was how the previous week at Dover, he didn't even make the race at all. So good job by Dave Blaney and his 22 team. Green flag pit stops started at around lap 140, and leaders like Matt Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson, Kurt Busch, and Jeff Gordon all began making their pit stops, and in the meantime, Tony Stewart was out there saving fuel, trying to stay out for as long as possible, and you know what? The caution comes out for rain, and it began pouring at the Kansas Speedway. And whether we were going to get back to racing or not, this caution in the middle of your pit stops was really going to jumble up the running order and the chase for the Nextel Cup. When I said it was pouring, I am being serious. Look at this. Rain everywhere, coming in very hard. You can see some parts of the racetrack. I slowed this clip down by half just so you could see that. Lightning in the area. It honestly, really, if you look at this, it looks like that there's no chance of getting the rest of the race, and Tony Stewart is the winner. But then things started clearing up, and the track drivers began working back on the racetrack, but I believe we had a couple more showers, so I would say this rain only lasted between 3 to 5 hours, but we did get back to racing. As you can see, when the yellow flag was lifted, it was very late in the afternoon, heading into the evening, and all the drivers that did make their pit stop before the caution came out, because remember the caution came out during a cycle of pit stops, were able to coast their way down to pit road. Now, how would they all restart? Well, this was before we had double file restart. So the way it used to be was that if you were a lap or more down, you would restart alongside the leaders on the inside. If you were a lap down but got your lap back because the leaders came down pit road and you chose to stay out, you would restart at the tail end of the lead lap directly in front of the leaders, and that would be very important for the next restart. If you look at the ticker, you might be wondering, wait a second, why is this race now 225 laps? Well, Kansas Speedway did not have lights at the time, so due to impending darkness, the race was shortened from 267 laps to 225 laps. This is a rare event, especially these days, because most of the tracks have lights, and from here on out, the aggressiveness and urgency from pretty much all of these drivers, especially the chasers, are going to rise. For this restart, I'm going to let the TV coverage speak for itself, and I think you'll see why.
Stewart is the leader. These cars on the tail end of the lead lap, and they're going to go 3 wide and 4 wide as they retake the green flag. There's Tony in the 20 car behind all these cars that are being shown on the tail end of the lead lap. Whoa, contact. Schrader is sideways. Gilliland is in it. The 1 car of Truex, the 17 car of Kenseth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just witnessed the big one, Kansas Speedway version, and it has taken out a couple of the chasers like Matt Kenseth and Martin Truex Jr. Both had strong cars, by the way. And To this day, this remains one of the biggest crashes ever at the track. The wreck was already in progress when ESPN showed it live, but on the replay it showed that Ken Schrader got pinched down by Michael Walker just a little bit, but it was enough to send him spinning. David Gillen got hit from behind by a derailment, and that just simply brought up all the smoke, and many drivers just had nowhere to go. David Gillen, Nat Kenseth, Martrix Jr. In the back, you'll see the 40 of David Strimmy. Martrix Jr. comes right up in front of Bobby Labonte. That's how he gets his damage. And it's amazing that more drivers didn't get involved. Now, Tony Stewart here, who was the leader at that moment, got a little bit of damage on the left front, but it could have been worse, but he also lost many spots in the process. We had a whole bunch of new faces inside the top 10, like Kevin Harvick, Greg Biffle, Clint Bowyer, Casey Mears, David Ragan, Elliott Sadler, Reed Sorensen, and J.J. Ellie. All of these drivers were into the top 10, and Kevin Harvick, who's in the chase, tries to hold out Greg Biffle, but he can't. Greg Biffle leads for the first time in the race. Biffle has nothing to lose, and throughout most of the 2007, or throughout a lot of 2007, he has struggled, but now he is leading and clearly has a fast car, and he begins to pull away from Kevin Harvick. In the meantime, where was Tony Stewart? Your answer is right here, in trouble. Turn stand 4, and Carl Edwards has nowhere to go. 2 more chase contenders in trouble at Kansas, and both of them had big damage. Definitely going to take them out for the remainder of the race. Now, if people talk to you about Tony Stewart having his heated moments, they might give you this example, because look at this. Angrily throws the steering wheel off to the right, puts up his visor very aggressively, and just throws away his gloves. And can you really blame him? Entering this race, he was second place in points, a couple points behind the points leader, Jeff Gordon. And he had such a good car, could have easily had won the race, and could have been the points leader coming out of Kansas, but now he leaves Kansas in a pretty big hole that he may not recover from, and he wasn't able to recover from it because he was not the 2007 NASCAR Nextel Cup Series champion. Riding on board Tony Stewart, he had been dropping like a rock ever since the restart, was about 20th place. Right there, the tire goes flat, Kirbush gets into the back of him, and then the rest is history, pretty much. The team gambled hoping that the left front tire wouldn't go down and something like this wouldn't happen, but I'm sure at this moment they were shaking their heads, immediately regretting that decision. These extra cautions and lengthy cleanups shortened the race even more, so now it was 210 laps. Greg Biffle got another good restart, and there we go again. Denny Hamlin, Jay McMurray spinning down the backstretch. Wow, at real time it looks like Hamlin's car is spinning like a top. It's just that kind of race. Cautions breed cautions, as they say. Denny Hamlin is in the chase. Jay McMurray is not, so this was big for Hamlin. And for some reason, Hamlin's car had a tough time going, and he would lose a lap, so it would result in a pretty bad finish for him. This wreck kind of came out of nowhere, but what happened was Denny Hamlin, Paul Menard, and Jay McMurray were all battling around 10th place. All 3 of them squeezed together, and that's how Denny Hamlin spun right in front of Jay McMurray, and because McMurray got into his left side, that's how Hamlin has the left side damage. And look at Denny Hamlin's car. It got into the air pretty good, but thankfully the roof flaps did their job, and both cars were able to stay on the ground. Now it was time for a 23-lap sprint. And why 23? Well, because we had 23 laps to go. Greg Biffle takes the field back to the green flag and gets another solid restart. But he was just simply flying after these restarts. He was able to gain a couple of tenths per lap shortly after these restarts. And as you can see, the whole entire track was pretty much in shade, but it was still bright enough to race. Jimmy Johnson and many others came down pit road shortly after the Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards wreck, and not only did they have fresher tires, but they just had overall faster cars, and Johnson was able to pass many cars shortly after the restart. Right there, Reed Sorensen, and right here with Casey Mears. His car was flying, but was he going to get to Greg Biffle in time? Right about here, he's like 4 seconds behind the leader. Jeff Gordon and his teammate was also making impressive moves as he went by Kevin Harvick, and both drivers were able to get themselves inside the top 5. 10 laps to go in the race, and Greg Biffle's lead over Cooper began slowly depleting. Right here on screen, you can see that it was about 1.2 seconds, and right here, a couple laps later, it's down to about a second. So can Clint Bowyer win at his home track and get a second career win? Third place Jimmy Johnson was just under 3 seconds behind, but it looks like that there was not going to be enough time for him to catch the top 2. As we got closer and closer to the finish, the gap between Greg Biffle and Clint Bowyer remained at about a second, and so it looked like Biffle had it in the bag unless something big happened. Like this, for example. Juan Pablo Montoya, who already hit the wall earlier in the race, looks like he hit it again even harder, and there goes the right front tire, so definitely a right front tire failure, and oh my goodness, even more debris. Yeah, debris all over the racetrack. Hello, NASCAR? Caution. There's debris all over the place. Thank you. I don't know what was the holdup. But now, if NASCAR chooses to go into green white checkered mode, this possible upcoming green white checkered, it was going to get very crazy because you had some hungry drivers like Clint Bowyer and Jimmy Johnson right behind Greg Biffle. I think it's safe to say that a lot of us didn't know how this race was going to end until we heard this.
Well, due to the darkness, they're saying they're not going to restart this race because of the darkness on the racetrack here, and it is going to finish as promised on lap 210. That's why you see these guys down there in the Roush Fenway pits celebrating.
But the race was not over yet. Everyone still had to complete one more lap, and then we complete lap 210. So let's not give this trophy to Biffle just yet. Fast forward to the final lap. Coming off of turn number 4, the number 16 Athletic 4 Fusion, you can see the checker flag, and Greg Biffle is the... Wait a second. Biffle's slow. He's on the apron. Why is this happening? Is he out of fuel? There goes Jimmy Johnson by. Clint Bowyer by. Other drivers are trying not to pass him because you can't pass under the yellow. Casey Mears goes by. Greg Biffle comes across the line in 4th place. Oh no! Well, that makes Clint Bowyer the winner. Wait a second. Greg Biffle is declared the winner. What? He came across the start finish line in 4th place among lead lap cars. What? This is really confusing. I don't quite understand this. I, along with some of the other drivers, thought that when the caution comes out, you have to maintain pace car speed, and as you can see, Biffle wasn't doing that. His car was sputtering, trying to get fuel into his car. But NASCAR said that he maintained reasonable speed, and also the fact that because the caution came out, the field is frozen, and thus the race was over because we didn't have a green white checkered. I wish they would have been more specific on when they said reasonable speed. And there are other questions that they can ask, but NASCAR didn't really give an answer, and so that didn't really help, especially since NASCAR is often accused by people as making the rules as it goes. Oh yeah, by the way, Denny Hamlin wasn't very happy with McMurray and or Paul Menard after the race. The remaining crowd that was still at Kansas Speedway gave a pretty strong but also mixed reaction of that finish. Take a listen. Chances are, I have a feeling that a lot of the boos were because of the race ending under caution, because many fans do not like races ending under caution, as opposed to Biffle somehow winning the race. NASCAR didn't change who was declared the winner, so it was still Greg Biffle in victory lane. He snaps a 28-race winless streak. His previous one before this one was the 2006 season finale, so it had been almost a full year. And like I said earlier, and I think Dr. Jerry Punch in the booth said best, everything that could go wrong for the 16 team did go wrong throughout much of 2007, and so this was a big win for Biffle and the rest of the 16 team. The Talladega Chase race is often called the wildcard race, but you could also consider this Kansas race quite the wildcard race as well. Look at the Chase standings. All but one of the 12 positions changed spots, and Jimmy Johnson became the points leader for the first time in the chase, followed by Jeff Gordon and Clint Bowyer. And that was the 2007 LifeLock 400 at Kansas. Also the very first NASCAR race I ever watched, and I've been a NASCAR fan since then. Man, what a race. It had a little bit of everything. Controversy, weather, attrition levels were pretty high, and more. Do I think that Biffle should have won the race? No, I don't think he should have won the race. He wasn't able to maintain minimum speed when others clearly could, and other drivers passed by him. And kind of when the leader, if the winner takes the checkered flag, despite not coming across the line first, that's like the opposite of racing, you know. So I don't think Biffle should have won. I think the top 4 should have been Bowyer, Johnson, Casey Mears, and then Biffle. but it is what it is. But at the same time, though, I also think really Kansas Speedway should have already had lights in the first place. Thankfully, it does now. But really, I'm sure Kansas Speedway could have been proactive back when it was first built and installed lights, so that way we could have avoided all this controversy. But like I just said, thankfully it has lights now. So that's this video. I know this video wasn't made to just its ability, but I just did the best with what I got, and it took me about a whole week to get this done, mainly because I had a lot of other things going on in my life. But I'm glad I'm able to get this uploaded before I go back into doing race reviews and writing my blog. And if you like this video and want me to see more, then I wouldn't mind doing more. You know, there are a couple other races from 2007 that I would definitely be interested in covering again. But it just simply depends on what you think. Thank you all for watching this. Be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and bye. And I'll see you in the next video.